Thank you for joining our panel session with iManage customers Robbins, Russell, and Schotz. Our discussion will focus on moving to iManage Cloud, how they built their business case, conducted their evaluation process, key security considerations, and lessons learned. I'm delighted to be joined by Dana Wesley Sarti, Litigation Support Manager at Robbins, Russell, and Pat Mansuy, Interim CIO at Schotz. My name is Nadine Bustos, and I'm an account manager at iManage. I'm based in New Jersey, and I support law firms in the Northeast US and Eastern Canada. Thank you both, Dana and Pat, for joining us today. To start off, if you would please share a bit about your background. We'll start off with Dana, please.
My short bio always starts out with I'm a recovering lawyer and lifelong legal geek. The legal geek part of it is, of course, what gets me into the iManage cloud and also into my primary, although wearer of many hats, primary hat, which is litigation support. And I'm also the information security contact for our firm, involved in a lot of the policy stuff and the security audits. So I got to peel back behind the curtain a lot with my firm when we rolled out iManage Cloud.
Pat?
Sure. My name is Pat Mansuy, and I am with Schotz right now as their interim CIO. I've been in the position for several years. I do work, my permanent position is with Kraft Kennedy. We're a legal technology consultant. Prior to coming to Kraft Kennedy, I worked with Baker Botts, I worked with Arnold and Porter, and I worked with Collier Shannon before they merged with Kelly Dry. So I've been internal, but spent the last few years of my career with Kraft Kennedy. Been with Schotz, as I said, in the CIO position for a number of years, and we recently, I guess about a year ago, moved to the iManage from the cloud. Been a long-term iManage customer on-prem prior to that.
Great, thank you for that. So in many of my conversation, the topic of moving to a cloud-based DMS platform is becoming more and more important to law firms. What I find that people are challenged with or struggling with is really how to justify a project of this nature. Dana, what were some of the key factors that led to the decision to move to iManage Cloud?
We had several factors plugging into what just painted a fairly obvious picture at the end of the day. We had some equipment that was coming up on life, and there had been no document management system beyond a shared network drive, and it was, I would say that we had a very structured approach to it, but it was not regularized. Data was not in any sense normalized. Well, everybody had a good grasp of why we needed our data organized, and we had an increasing need for versioning, version tracking, where documents were going out to clients and co-counsel and coming back, and it would be who's got the pen on which version. And pretty much the last straw was when a brief had to be reprinted before it could be actually filed with the Supreme Court. I don't even remember if we had to beg for please let us swap these out. But that was one of the major awakenings to versioning. So I would say, yeah, organizing the data, keeping track of versions, those were the big things. And it was our first DMS ever. Then the equipment part of it. And I know I'm being long in my answer here, but the equipment part of it was, do we want to pay? We don't have an in-house IT person. We've got outside services only. And do we want to pay to try to maintain whole new boxes in our server room that's already pretty hot with everything that's in there? So putting it in the cloud was also just another really good thing. And finally, we have folks who go off to witness interviews, client meetings, court, in lots of places outside of our office. So that mobility, even years ago, I think it was at least 6 years ago now, that mobility needed to be baked into what we were doing as well.
Yes, certainly, especially these times in the different environments we're finding ourselves working in. So Pat, I'll turn to you. Why did Schotz decide to move to iManage Cloud?
Several years ago, we began an initiative to really take the majority of our on-prem workloads to the cloud. And we began with Exchange and moved to Exchange to the cloud. And, we also began to look at, does it make sense to move iManage to the cloud? We certainly wanted to decrease our hardware, decrease our reliance on our data center, the support that our IT team had to do, and to also move from capital expense that we were having to operational expense. So those were big factors, and reduced overall complexity of what we were managing and decrease the internal needs for support. So that was our major change, and our major goals were to do that and to be certain that we were meeting those key factors. And, we were able to do that very quickly. We did do a review of the other cloud vendors that were there, but it was clear that iManage was where we needed to be and go. And, one of my senior partners said, well, we don't want to go to another vendor because everyone calls it iManage. So we've got to go stay with iManage. They didn't call it document management. They called it iManage. And it was a good point. That's what you're comfortable with. It's, it's something that you feel strongly about. And it's a key factor. Document management is in everything that we do. Filing emails, filing documents, bringing, a matter together for our clients. It's key to what lawyers do. So,
thank you for sharing that. Moving to a cloud system, a cloud platform is a significant undertaking for any organization, no matter the size. In terms of the people, the process, change management, what did it take to complete this project and more importantly, successfully complete it? Dana?
Well, I would say that this has to happen no matter where you go to for a document management system, especially the first time. But I think even if you were moving from another one, it would be just as important. You need to look at how people actually work. You need to look at how people look for what they need, how people expect to find what they need, and break it down to as simple a set of structure as possible. Then you need to look at how tolerant or impatient your users are about what they want to manually enter and what we can capture from the system. And basically the short answer is spend a lot of time on that process. We spent more time actually planning the setup than it took to put it in place. We too looked at other systems, and I will tell you that one of the things we looked at was the fact that the main competitor only indexed final versions at the time. They may have changed this since, but they only index final versions. And we do a lot of brief writing. And sometimes you will write something in a version of the brief. It doesn't make the final brief. You're holding it because you might want to come back to it for the reply. Or you may want to use that issue or that writing that you did in a future brief and to be able to search and find prior briefs. So again, learning how your users are looking for information and tracking back and sharing among each other. This is what we did before, so we can keep, using it as a knowledge base. So planning. Then we trained, and we ended up doing some retraining and some re-rollout, and don't cheap out on the training. It is, because we got it up and we got it rolling and we got it right, our onboarding has been fantastic for subsequent users. It was just that initial bulk of the firm making that transition. They really needed, everything was new about the process. So.
Right. And for you, Pat, what was the journey like? I know that you had been on premises for many, many years. So making that shift over, what did it entail?
Well, Dana certainly had a much greater challenge than I did. I can tell you. For us, it was very easy. We utilized Kraft Kennedy as our implementation partner, and they did an expert job of getting the deployment basically done behind the scenes. We made a decision to not change from the original desk site client initially. And so we kept that. So our users really didn't know what was going on in the back end. And we we reckon, we let them know that you're now in the cloud, but they really have not had any impact whatsoever. So it was great. I mean, the tech folks had a little bit of an adjustment because they don't have the same tools. We were using third-party tools to do a lot of our modifications and our imports and things of that nature. And, they've had to adjust a little bit to the control center and understanding how that works and get acclimated that way. But overall, we had no issues from users. It was easy peasy, very simple.
That's good. Those are will ring well in folks' ears. I know that it can be daunting to
Yes.
take on a project like this. So now that you're both in the cloud, speak to us about what life is like now. What are the specific benefits for you and your IT team as well as end users? Pat, I'll start with you.
Sure. As I said, from an IT perspective, it's really so much easier. We have no downtime anymore. We don't have to tell people, oh, you can't be in iManage because we've got to do an update. That's a huge thing. As I said, we're still using the desk site client, but we're planning now. We actually have packaged the Work10 client. We're going to be rolling that out and training folks on that. So that will give them some more features and functionality that they can use that they haven't been able to use. We're also introducing the mobile client, which is a big one for us because everyone wants to be able to look at documents on their mobile devices. We were held back on getting that to work for a bit because we had some problems with the way in which the mobile client would work on the iPhones when we had multi-factor authentication on them. And so that was a blocker for that, but we've got that resolved now. So we're moving forward with introducing that. So, I mean, those are all new tools, new ways of accessing that I believe are going to be, very, very well received by our attorneys, particularly. So.
Yeah, attorneys love their devices. Dana,
I could just sit here and nod my head along with Pat the whole time. That what she said. No, part of this was that our users never had the whole issue of downtime, even when it was just back on our file server on prem and it wasn't iManage at all, there was still, everybody has to get out the backups, the updates, everything. So we also immediately saw that benefit by and I think that's one of the things that helped make it the pain of learning these new systems better was immediately it was always available. So that was fantastic. Not to mention the dread word pandemic, but we never had downtime because of the pandemic. Our users were already mobile. They had been using and logging in if they didn't remember their company laptop, the firm laptop or something. They were already using mobility web and getting to iManage from the web anyway, without having to go through a VPN or the Office getting in. And so, yeah, being in the cloud was so liberating in terms of knowing where stuff is and being able to get to it, no matter what's going on back at the office.
Yeah, certainly. So one theme that again keeps on coming up in conversations I'm having these days is security. And in some cases, my other customers, that was the sole reason that they were able to get approval from the partnership to move to iManage Cloud. In both your cases, tell me how a security initiative or security was treated at your firm, Pat.
Sure. I mean, we firmly believe that cloud has made us more secure. We are no longer, at the mercy of having to do constant updates on our hardware and software and ensuring that, we have our firewalls, well, we still use firewalls, of course, but, that we're not having to just manage everything that goes on with regard to security. So that's really freed us up to do some greater things that really are focused on, enhancing the practice of law instead of being down in the weeds. And so we really have looked at, some of the advances that we have with advanced threat protection, encryption, the overall, not having to manage an infrastructure any longer from a security perspective. And, we're trusting, that iManage is keeping an eye on the data also. And we're looking forward to using some of the iManage tools for information governance and for retention policies and things of that nature that we really never had the tools to do before. So those things all are wrapped up into part of what we view as our security posture. And, not only having a secure environment, the ability to, encrypt and password data, and being certain that we're maintaining our information governance stance is that's all kind of built into what we've gotten from iManage, and those tools are going to help us as we move forward with those policies.
Good. Any additional comments that you could add, Dana, for what your firm's posture is with security?
One of the big, it was perhaps bigger for some partners than for others on endorsing adoption of iManage in the cloud, but it was that we have several clients for whom we are business associates under HIPAA. And so the ability to document and produce documented audit trails for access to information that they are also obligated to maintain confidential, that was something that was just horrifically onerous until we got our data into iManage. The additional benefit was the evolution and deployment of the SPM, Security Policy Manager. Yeah. SPM, it works. So yeah, but that was our first major add-on. And for larger firms, I'm sure that there are, tons of benefits for other things that iManage is developing and offering. For a firm of our size, with 37 lawyers, that Security Policy Manager just simplified everything. We were relying on Active Directory groups, and then we're trying to get active. It just simplified. What are we doing? How do we document that we did it? Who has access? Who doesn't? Who has read access? Who has view? Write access? It's that whole ability to document what you're doing and drill into it and see it at a glance to know who can access it, who did, and when, and that sort of thing. So security was big, but that's probably bigger for me and a few of the key players on the security committee. But it's not to be trivialized.
Yeah, certainly. So taking a step back just a bit, in the evaluation process and selling it internally, I'm curious as to how your clients felt about making this transition. I know that in other cases, sometimes there's a hesitation for the law firm's clients to agree to move to the cloud. Was that a concern as you were stepping into the evaluation process and making decisions for this project, Pat?
We've not had any clients whatsoever push back on our, because I guess we would say we're now cloud first. We always look if there's a cloud component that we can utilize for whatever need we have, we're going to try to go there. And we've not had that at all. We have had audit requests since we've moved to the cloud. We've not gotten any pushback on that. So we've responded to some of those, surveys, and then also we are an ALAS firm, and so we've been. I did the ALAS survey probably about 6 months ago, and we came out with a very high score with ALAS on their cybersecurity survey. So we feel like we have made the right decisions, certainly. And I don't have a team that can provide security at the level that I feel like needs to be there to protect everything. It's just almost impossible. And when you know that you can have your your data, your workloads in the cloud. Our two most important, our Exchange and our documents are in the cloud now, and I don't have to worry about that. I can sleep. I have trust that, both Microsoft and iManage are ensuring that our security is strong, and they're watching 24/7, and yeah, they're both large companies. They have a reputation to protect, um, and they can bring more to the table than we ever could as a mid-sized firm. So.
Sure. Dana, any concerns when you were going through the evaluation process from your clients?
I think that clients have evolved and grown up, as have we. When we first got into it, that was in fact a concern. Did we have to tell any clients? Do we have to get any clients' permission? We determined that aside from, I think, maybe one client, we didn't need to ask permission when it was clear, absolutely crystal clear, that the moving our data to iManage Cloud, moving the client's documents to iManage Cloud would make them more secure. There was under no circumstance they could argue that we had jeopardized the security of their information. So the additional part of this, you mentioned the security audits, and we do list iManage as one of our key vendors when we're, that's one of the magic questions on virtually all of those audits, and we do list them. And I remember back when we had, I think it was Heartbleed, and the big question was, has this been patched? And I have to say that even as a little old teeny tiny client of iManage, we never felt as though we didn't matter to this big company. So I appreciated that. We got an answer back right away, so that we could provide that information forward to the clients who were asking.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate hearing that. So I want to pick up on a comment, Dana, that you made and pivot to Pat. You had previously mentioned that mobility was key, especially during these times. And Pat, before you had been challenged with the mobility piece. So how is it these days, and especially during remote working environments and times? Has it changed?
Well, with regard to kind of the shift that we had to do with the pandemic, we were able to do that pretty seamlessly. From a mobility standpoint, all of our lawyers and staff were issued laptops, and so we were able to have them with a full functional VPN, so they had the full image on their laptops. We also had Citrix available from a mobility point of view. But we had not, as I said, we just not introduced the mobility client at that point in time because we didn't feel like we needed to, number one, but we were also having issues as we were trying to get it on, the one iPhone model with our multi-factor. And we didn't want to roll it out for the folks with Androids, which it would work for, and not with the iPhone. So that just wasn't going to be well received at all. So I think from a perspective of we've not really had any issues, either dealing with the pandemic or just in normal mobility perspective with having availability and access to iManage. So it's been great. Again, we haven't introduced the web client. We really didn't feel like we needed to because we have all the features and functionality baked into our laptop image. So.
Good. So if you were to take the role on as advisor, and if there are one or two things that you could offer to your peers as they begin their evaluation process, what would those one or two things be? Dana?
I would say do this with a partner who's done it before. So we went with Kino Cozy, and then we also did a little redeployment with Adaptive. Once we'd gotten there and figured out what we should have all done better, and then did some retraining and whatnot. So I would say rely on people who've done it before. You're not a guinea pig. There are lots of people who've done this before. So yeah, and the other thing is Don't be in a rush to move your data. Plan what it's going to look like when you get there first. So spend a lot of time with every level of user, from your secretary, your receptionist, to your new associates who've come from other firms, and your senior associates who are seeing how they might like things to be that they aren't now, to your established partners who don't see anything wrong with what you're doing now. They can find what they need. Thanks very much. So get everybody into that room talking about, looking at examples. It, it is difficult sometimes to have them all at the same time. So maybe you'll need to break up into little groups, but plan and get them to work on this with you, because if they don't, it's just, you cannot get a solution that works for everyone if they didn't talk about it and decide that's what they agreed to.
Yes, well, I can certainly see that. So thank you for that. And Pat, any
Well, I
nuggets of
certainly did
wisdom?
not. Yeah, we certainly did not have the challenges that Dana had. I mean, we were, as I said, it was fairly transparent to our users when we moved, and I think we did communicate, of course, that we were going to the cloud, but it was smooth sailing, no issues whatsoever, no concerns. Um, Most people didn't even realize when it happened, to be honest. So, and I think that goes to, we had a good implementation partner. We use Kraft Kennedy, and they have done this before, and so we didn't have any issues whatsoever. Day one, it was just like nothing had changed. So, and I think that's where you want to be. So.
Yeah.
Great. No, understood. Thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time to share your experiences. I really enjoyed this discussion, and I'm hoping that a lot of your insights will resonate with your peers. Thank you so much.